joining us tonight on the State of the Nation, this the 23rd of July, the year 2024. Indeed, it's a day that we have much and more lined up for you. And of course, it's a day that we have seen a lot of activities in the country. And of course, from the surprise change of cabinet nominees from President William Ruto, and of course to the now ongoing demonstrations across the country, all this we will unpack it for you in just a minute of time. But of course, remember, this is the discussion that will follow in keenly, just to bring you up to speed with what is happening beside our comprehensive coverage on the day's event. But first thing first, our top stories tonight. Tonight, shocked and confused. National Assembly confused by Ruto's changes in his proposed cabinet reconstitution without notice. It is not business as usual. Opposition lawmakers fire early warning, vows to reject nominees with questionable character. Also tonight, occupy at your own risk. Police blocks Old Road heading to JKIA, issues warning to protesters to keep off the airport. Plus, torn down. Acting Inspector General of Police calls on Gen Z to end protest, terming it as a heaven for goons.
This is KUTV Primetime News with Auma Evans.
My co-pilot tonight is John Opio. Remember, you can follow this broadcast on all of our sign language you can follow this broadcast on all of our social media platforms. We are live on YouTube at KUTV News Live, and of course, you can talk to us on all of our social media handles at Twitter at KUTV_Kenya at Auma Evans. Remember to use the hashtag State of the Nation. So State of the Nation begins with the latest. Now, President William Ruto has made further changes to his cabinet nominees, with Soipan Tuya taking the Defense Ministry, while Adan Duale switched to the Ministry of Environment. The changes caught members of Parliament unaware, seeking further clarity from the National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula. Barely a week after President William Ruto nominated 11 names to be part of his reconstituted cabinet in the first batch, Ruto has quickly amended the list to the surprise of members of the National Assembly, leaving many numb and confused, a clear indication that they were clueless of the changes.
Order, honorable members. Order. Order. Honorable Aden Bare Duale, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry. Order. Order, honorable members. Order. 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 I shall not repeat. Order.
Many interpreted Wetangula's communication as a slip of tongue and clearly seek clarity before the message clearly sank home.
Mr. Speaker, Kaluma. Mr. Speaker, they normally say in Parliament, what you communicate is what is communicated, and that is what is final. But I'm not sure whether this list is the same one, Mr. Speaker. We cannot change your records in Parliament, but we are really in doubt whether this is the real one. But we shall wait. Mr. Speaker,
while what you've read could be contradictory to what we heard the President announce, well, I would like you, Mr. Speaker, to confirm, indeed, that what you've read is actually It's actually what was communicated by the head of state.
In the new changes, the former Defense Cabinet Secretary Adan Duale, who was to lead the same docket should Parliament approve his nomination, will now spearhead Environment Ministry, while Soipan Tuyo will be in charge of Defense docket, switching places with Adan Duale. However, in the list read by the National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula, Rebecca Miano's name was missing in the list. Miano was nominated to the position of Attorney General. Her exclusion in the list raises more questions. Did the president head a change of heart, or her omission in the list a typo error?
Yes, Comcate.
The surprise changes begs very critical and fundamental question. What could be the reason behind the sudden change, and why keep it a secret until the last minute? The changes comes at the backdrop of continued displeasure from a section of Kenyans who are opposed to what they termed as recycle and reused method used by President William Ruto to reappoint same cabinet secretary who was shown the exit door.
In foreign exchange.
And now to Motors protest. No protesters managed to get into the restricted area, that is the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport premises, following heavy police presence that was witnessed throughout the day ahead. And as Emma Mwangi reports, police blocked all roads leading to JKIA as police fired tear gas to demonstrators who were marching towards JKIA without a number of protesters, a number of protesters arrested in that regard.
In Gen Z language, this Tuesday's Occupy JKIA protest is considered unsuccessful as no protester managed to get in as was their plan. Police shot tear gas at protesters who were marching from Nairobi CBD to JKIA along the Uhuru Highway and along Mombasa Road near Imara Daima. The situation in Imara Daima had rapidly deteriorated as protests turned violent by throwing of stones as police exercised restraint. The group of demonstrators tried to make their way to the airport, but they later resurfaced at large numbers near the Nairobi CBD. Protests also erupted on Outer Ring Road, just about 500 meters from the fence from the JKIA, where the road was impossible as protesters who had been gathering since morning blocked it with stones and tires. Police fired tear gas to disperse the protesters. In line with the social media rumors of JKIA being sold, Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi clarified that JKIA is not for sale. He went ahead to say that it is a public and strategic asset which will need a full legal process that Parliament endorses.
So anybody who is giving the impression that the airport, Jomo Kenyatta Airport, has been sold is not being factual. It is not true. Apart from just the new terminal that will come up, we want to create Jomo Kenyatta Airport, have part of Mombasa at the port, and have all through to Naivasha.
He went ahead to say that going forward, the Kenya Airport Authority must go through its investment program carefully to make sure there will be transparency so that during expansion process of the new second terminal, Kenyans will follow up. Emma Mwangi, KUTV.
Thank you, Emma Mwangi, for that. Now, still on matters demonstrations, clashes have been witnessed today between police officers and demonstrators in several counties across the country. Youths in Kisii County confronted and dispersed goons who attempted to disrupt peaceful demonstrations. In Embu County, boda operators clash with their leader over alleged bribes received from business owners to prevent goons from damaging their property. Take a look.
Today's protest saw Embu boda operators confronting their leader for allegedly accepting a bribe to persuade boda owners to expel street protesters. According to police reports, a certain business owner named Martin Kariuki received a sum of 500 million shillings to prevent goons from raiding shops, which he distributed among some boda operators, causing resentment among those who received nothing. In Machakos County, police clashed heavily with the demonstrators protesting against President Ruto's administration, leading to the closure of businesses and major roads. Elsewhere in Kisii County, goons were repelled by demonstrators after attempting to disrupt the ongoing peaceful protests. The demonstrators cited the return of cabinet secretaries as a key demand contributing to the unrest. The ongoing demonstrations have stirred sentiments, especially from leaders who have warned that if the country continues with the current unrest, there is a risk of economic decline. Joylene Akware, KUTV.
Now, meanwhile, in a joint call to stop the seemingly non-ending anti-government protests in the country, the Acting Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja has warned the Gen Zs not to occupy any restricted area in the country, insisting that those caught will face full force of the law. Mercy Maira reports on a day that business owners issued a rallying cry to Gen Zs to stop the ongoing protest and give President William Ruto time to implement his manifesto.
In a press briefing today, the Acting Inspector General Kanja criticized the weekly youth protests, naming it as haven of goons motivated to steal and destroy properties of innocent and hardworking Kenyans.
Hatuna nchi nyingine inaitwa Kenya, ni hii peke yake tuko naye. Na sisi wote tuko na jukumu ya kuona ya kwamba nchi yetu iko sawasawa na iko na amani ya kutosha.
Kanja singled out the LPG plant, the bitumen plant, and petroleum depot situated at the Embakasi Aviation Depot as protected areas listed under the Protected Areas Order, Legal Notice Number 9 of 2011, second schedule that should be protected at all costs. He emphasized that if protesters had taken into account the Public Orders Act legal requirements, that protest organizers notify the police or regulating officer in advance of any planned public procession, well as the Constitution, the state of chaos that has been observed throughout the nation in recent weeks could have been avoided.
Kwa nchi yetu saa hizi si mambo sawa na hatutaikubalia. Kuenda kuingia kwa kiwanja ya ndege huko na hujapata ruhusa ya kuingia huko haitakubalika.
Kisii County church leaders, on the other hand, pleaded with the GNC, the government and opposition leaders to come together for a dialogue in order to find a solution to ongoing protests.
Katika sehemu yetu ya Nyanza hapa Kisii County tunao jambo la kuongea kwa niaba ya vijana wetu ambao ni wa jinsia ambao wanaoandamana. Naomba wasitise hiyo maandamano kwa sababu maandamano haya yanapokuja inaharibu business.
Tuombee nchi yetu, wachungaji, wasee wa makanisa, viongozi wote, tuombee nchi yetu, tuombee watoto wetu.
In line with that, the business owners and boda riders have complained of registering a big loss since protests began in June, as most of their properties were destroyed and stolen. Songoro Masimaira, KUTV.
Thank you, Songoro Masimaira, for that. Now, the National Assembly has resumed its normal session today after a month-long recess amid ongoing protests. Key discussion included President William Ruto's memorandum on the rejected Finance Bill of 2024 and the representation of cabinet nominees for vetting by the National Assembly, with opposition lawmaker vowing to reject cabinet secretary nominees with questionable character, as James Baraka now reports.
Today marked a significant session in the Kenyan parliament as the legislators resumed normal parliamentary sessions amidst the ongoing public demonstrations, with President William Ruto's memorandum addressing the recently rejected Finance Bill 2024 and the presentation of cabinet nominees for parliamentary vetting dominating the sessions.
I hereby refer the message from the President together with the curriculum vitae of the nominees to the Committee on Appointments.
Despite the bill's rejection being seen as a victory for the protesters, claims of a section of MP disseminating fake news filled the air, with the Speaker of the National Assembly cautioning the MPs of being associated with such.
The mischievous and misleading comments about the fate of the bill upon rejection unfortunately came from some of our own members here. Members continued churning out fake news to the public about the fate of the bill, to the effect that within 14 days it was going to become law, which was false.
This bill, as we speak, is dead because I don't think we have the capacity to raise 2/3 in this House, and we don't intend to do, because of the whip, I will not provide the 2/3 from our side to undo what the president has done.
Any one of you who wants to save any part of the bill, including the title, marshal 233 members when it comes so that you can vote to save it. Thank you. Yes, sir.
As Kenyans hope for a capable and effective cabinet to navigate the country through these turbulent times, the vetting process is expected to be thorough, with the legislators threatening to throw out nominees who don't meet qualifications or who have any negative track records.
This time and this period in Parliament, Mr. Speaker, I want to tell members, my colleagues, that vetting of this CSS is not going to be business as usual. Brothers and sisters who have been nominated, if you know you don't qualify, please leave early before you come to this House. This time we will put you in front of Kenyans bare, Mr. Speaker.
All eyes are now centered on the outcomes of these two key discussions, among others, and their impact on the national stability, as the two critical issues have now been assigned to committees who are to discuss, then present reports to the whole House for consideration. James Baraka, KUTV News.
16 minutes past time to take a very short break here on the State of the Nation. Remember, plenty more to follow, including our discussion of the day. See you in just a bit.
Are you an aspiring media practitioner, a graduate, or you just want to advance your skills in television production? Then welcome to Kenyatta University, where education meets innovation. KUTV, the premier university television station in Kenya, is now offering short courses in TV studio, field technical operations, and video editing. Through these courses, you will acquire hands-on skills on camera operations, media production, lighting techniques, audiovisual editing, and sound and visual control, and how to operate key equipment in modern TV control room. Enroll today at KUTV and discover your full potential in cutting-edge TV broadcasting. Graduates of these courses will receive professional certificates. For more information, visit our offices at KUTV Studios or call us on 020-870-4252 or 020-870-4255 or SMS us on 0739-110-544. KUTV, a new experience.
Maelfu na maelfu ya wahamiaji wakiwa na watoto kutoka nchi za Amerika ya Kati wanaendelea kuwasili kwenye mpaka kati ya Marekani na Mexico.
The folks, I'm going. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Ni habari kutoka pembe zote duniani.
Pepo pasi vuguvugu. Pepo pa ni idea.
Tazidi ananyonya, hanyonyi vizuri, anakuwa hayuko comfortable.
Jeshi la Jamhuri ya Kidemokrasia ya Kongo linapambana na waasi wa ADF.
Wito kwa mashirika, makampuni na vile vituo vya uchukuzi.
Mambo mengi yatakwenda kama yalivyopangwa.
Hapa ni kuna mmoja wa viongozi wa chama cha wavuvi katika eneo hili.
Zaidi tunajaribu kuwapa chanjo ili ina boost ama inanyanyua kinga ya mwili, ndio inaenda kupelekea kupambana na virusi.
Ni dunia ni leo, Jumatatu mpaka Ijumaa, moja kwa moja kutoka VOA Swahili, Washington DC.
possessing your property, intellectual or material.
This and more only on Law Matters.
You are watching KUTV Primetime News with Auma Evans.
Right, welcome back, and now, just like I promised you, it's time that we'll be taking a look at that particular discussion in regard to the sudden change of Prime Cabinet, or rather Cabinet Secretaries nominees by President William Ruto, barely a week after their nomination, and of course their names now presented to the Parliament for vetting. And if their names will be approved, then that will be another next cabinet, the reconstituted one that will help President William Ruto to run his cabinet alongside his agenda, the Kenya Kwanza agenda. And of course, in light of what is happening, we have seen a lot of development in regard to this, and of course, key name missing. Remember, on Friday last week, President William Ruto, in position of Attorney General, had mentioned, or rather presented, the name of Rebecca Miano as the next Attorney General, the female Attorney General. Should her name be passed with Parliament, then she would have made history to be the first female Attorney General. And of course, in today's Parliament recess, and of course, among the names that were read by the National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula, her name was missing, raising very critical question: what could be the reason of her omission in that list? And in regard to the changes, from the switching of changes from Defense CS to the Ministry of Environment, I'm talking about Adan Duale, and of course Soipan Tuya switching to the Ministry of Defense. Why the sudden change of heart, and these sudden changes in regard to this key position? What could be the reason behind these changes? And that is the question and of course that we'll try to unpack and even highlight this and try to bring some things into forth and see what is happening in regard to this, the 11-member list. And of course, to help me unpack this particular discussion is Advice Mundalo, communication and leadership consultant. Advice, asante sana for making time.
Asante pia.
All right, so straight to it. Today we have seen a surprise, if you ask me. Even members of Parliament were surprised by these changes that were made by President William Ruto, at a very changes that come at a shock to many. And of course, now the switching of this key position from Adan Duale from the Ministry of Defense to the Ministry of Environment, and of course Soipan Tuya now switching to the Ministry of Defense. In your own view, what could be the reason behind this sudden change, and of course a surprise one from President William Ruto from his, the proposed nominees?
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for having me at KUTV. I think it's been a moment and a while since I was at KUTV, so thank you for having me. Now, on to your question. I think first of all, we must be able to appreciate that the appointments to cabinet are president's reserves. They are a reserve of the presidency, and the president has the right to appoint whoever he wants to appoint to whichever ministry he wants to do it, and to reshuffle whichever way. Mm-hmm. So in the first place, we must be able to come from that understanding that it's actually his mandate. Now, what I read is, I think there was further consultation after the president's announcements. I think there was further consultation with the military, there was further consultation with various stakeholders, and just getting to understand how the work can be able to be done better. Remember, the president also has an agenda on environment, and just last year we were able to host the climate summit, and the president also sits as the chair of the climate committee at the African Union. So the climate and the environment agenda is just as heavy on his priority list as is our defense. So I think it's a question of further consultation and just being able to see at the level that we are, who is able to actually execute the mandate better at which docket. So I think we might also be reading too much into it. But generally, I just think the president had further consultation with various stakeholders, putting in mind the mandate and the nature of the mandate that he has, and the priorities that he has for the country in terms of, remember, the president has, is it the 1 billion trees project, and also the energies in Adan Duale. Maybe he needed to be taken to a place where his impact is more felt by the people, not to mean there is no impact at defense, but just to mean most of the duty at defense is mostly on external relations and just keeping the country safe. And maybe the president needs more of his energy at the environment to just be able to execute that agenda even better. So I think it's something that just came up after further consultation of the various stakeholders that are able to constitute a country and just to safeguard the well-being of the country. That's my thought.
All right. And, talking about further consultation, there has been some area of concerns in regard to the 6 cabinet secretaries that were, reappointed, if you ask me. And of course, majority of Kenyans feel that this is a method of reuse and recycle that President William Ruto is using, and some actually expressed their displeasure in some of the proposed names. Do you think probably this could be the reason why maybe you're seeing some sort of the last minute reshuffle here and there just to try and live up to the expectation and standards of Kenyans? What do you read in this?
First of all, I think reshuffle does not cure the perception of reuse, because if that is the perception, then reshuffle is basically the same names. And I also don't understand under what rationale you have used to gauge that majority of Kenyans disagreed, because the same Kenyans, I was able to see that after the dismissal of cabinet secretaries, we were also having Kenyans going online and being able to say, we want whoever back, we want this person back. And there was even a poll that was done by an independent body. And I think the highest ranking person on the poll was Professor Kithure Kindiki, who most of the Kenyans were being able to say, we want him back. So I don't think it is very right to say majority of Kenyans say they did not want them. I think what Kenyans basically were able to say is that they want people who can be able to serve the republic, people who can be able to espouse the leadership capacity in them. They want people who can be able to take up the leadership dictates and take the ministries to the next level. People who we can be able to see productivity out of, and not just their tribe, and not just their relation with the president, and not just that. I think that is where Kenyans were heavy. That is what Kenyans were heavy about. I don't think they were so heavy about who come. It's just about service delivery, and I think that is what we all must be able to be focused on. The aspect of people coming back, again, as I told you, it is the reserve of the president. Remember, the president has a mandate voted. The president is not appointed. He was elected by the very Kenyans who were able to know his task and his responsibility. Part of that responsibility is to constitute the cabinet. So that at the end of the day, what we expect from him is to give us a cabinet that can be able to function, to give us a cabinet that can be able to reflect the face of Kenya, of course, putting in mind his political interests as well, because at the end of the day, the president achieves the presidency through a political process. But it is not, again, in our forte to dictate to the president who exactly must be in his cabinet. I think that is extending our wishes too high. At the end of the day, the president has that responsibility to be able to appoint his cabinet.
All right. And just a point of clarity. Well, the reason why I'm saying that majority of Kenyans feel that, some of the names that President actually, reappointed or rather presented forward for Parliament to approve to form part of the next cabinet secretaries, there is some genuine concerns from Kenyans. And if you were to talk about, let's say, for example, the cabinet secretary for Interior and National Coordination, Professor Kithure Kindiki, well, in as much as the ranking, the polls indicated that he was a top performer, but there is some Kenyans genuine who feels that with all the police brutalities that happened under his watch, they felt that maybe he's not the wise choice. And that's why I referred and I said majority of Kenyans felt that some names in this 6 list of former CSs maybe did not augur well with them. So that was my point of clarity. And fair enough on that one. There is still another name that is missing, and of course I want your opinion on this. This is Rebecca Miano. He was proposed for the position of Attorney General, and of course today in the list her name was missing. So probably, what do you think of this?
Yeah, first of all, I agree with your sentiment about Professor Kindiki and some Kenyans expressing what you've just been able to express. But some Kenyans does not amount to majority of Kenyans, because diction is very, very important. And when you say majority, it looks like it is actually quantitative, that you've been able to actually have a real survey. And also on the same breath, whereas we must respect the opinion of every Kenyan, we must also be able to respect institutions, because the Cabinet Secretary for Interior is a policy maker. Now, when we talk about the person in charge of the police, it's an independent arm. It's under the Inspector General of Police. And that's why you're able to see most of the briefs today are by the Inspector General. And in all fairness, we were able to see the Inspector General resign from that office and see someone else take up. So I do not really think that you can be able to lump and apportion every blame of everything to the CS specifically, in as much as I agree that the buck must stop with him. Because when there is a problem at Kenyatta University, you do not necessarily have to blame the Minister of Education, because the Kenyatta University has a running system. But be that as it may, Honorable Rebecca Miano, I was also concerned that I was not able to see her name on the list, and I don't know why. I don't know whether it will be presented at another time with the second batch, and I do not want to speculate, because we are also sometimes very speculative, and we also extend our powers too highly, because I wouldn't want to say I would know why that was able to happen. I think it is in the same breath of just having more consultations. In my view, it was quite a good thing that we're able to have that office being given to, be having the first woman Attorney General, and we'll be able to see and gauge how she is able to perform, not because she's a woman, but because I think she's qualified for the job. She's a seasoned lawyer. She's been able to work in the corporate sector, in the legal fraternity. She has quite some experience. I would want to see how that is able to pan out. But again, without being very speculative, I think we'll be able to leave it at the presidency, so that we don't know what will happen tomorrow. We don't know if the name will be presented after further consultation. We don't know, maybe she would be taken back to ministry and someone else given the Attorney General's job. But I think it's the reserve of the president. And it being the reserve of the president, we must learn also as Kenyans to let the president do his job, and not always to want to read too much and also direct what the president should be able to do. Because at the end of the day, he's the one who has the job, and he must be allowed to do it.
All right. Fair enough. Now that President has, of course, presented the nominees for this Cabinet Secretary's position, now the job and, of course, the real task is at the hands of now the National Assembly. And of course, today there were a bit of, some sort of introduction. And of course, members from the opposition said that this will not be business as usual. And of course, now with these 11 names and of course the 11 nominees already in Parliament. So do you think probably this time round we'll see proper vetting in terms of accountability, merit, credential, so that the same reason that why we are having this process today will not repeat itself again probably in the future?
In all fairness, what I expect and what I hope for is that we actually have a very proper vetting process, so that for once Kenyans can be able to see that people have been judged for what they can actually do, people have been given jobs for what they are qualified to do, and not for any other reason. That is what I hope for as a Kenyan and as an ordinary citizen outside here. That is what I hope and pray for. But what I saw today in Parliament does not necessarily point to that fact, because I was able to see ODM legislators more keen about their list than being keen about the vetting process. It simply, for me, painted a picture as though the ODM legislators are keen on knowing who is on their list before they know whether they should approve this one. And that moves us away from qualification. That moves us away from who actually qualifies for the job. It moves us away from what the leadership dictates that Kenyans have been speaking about and just espousing. So for me, it's my hope. I really hope and pray that they are able to judge every person and give dockets to people who can qualify to do them, so that we don't have professionals again saying we cannot be able to listen to this person because we do not believe he has the capacity. Let us ensure the parliament has that core responsibility. And I think if anything, they should have learned their lessons from the last demonstrations that we had, and we even had Kenyans storm the parliament. That should be testament enough for them to do the right thing. And that is what I hope for as a Kenyan. But the direction the debate took today, with the legislators from opposition more keen about what list has Raila presented and why is it not here, and why should it not come here quickly, and we need it within the next few days. To me, it pointed to a kind of blackmail, like we want to know what is in it for us before we know what we do with the approvals. Although that is my imagination, I might be wrong, but that is what I was able to read through what the legislators from the opposition side were actually championing for.
And you've actually raised a very important question. Be it may as it may be, hypothetically speaking, let's say now this list that you talk about now, the opposition, should it see the light of the day? We have the same problem that we are talking about reuse and recycle. And of course, this is just similar, the similar thing that many of Gen Zs who are out there protesting against, some of the areas that they would want to be improved as far as the governance and of course the leadership of this country is concerned. So in a scenario whereby leaders who are supposed to actually, vet for this and make sure that Kenyans get proper cabinet secretaries that will hold these key dockets in the institution of our country. And of course, if the same leaders are scrambling for this position, then where does it leave us as a country? And the gains that we are trying to, that the young people are trying to bring, this change, do you think probably this will just be a tall order at the end of the day?
In my view, the Gen Z uprising was a very good and timely uprising, and it raised very legitimate concerns. But it failed to then morph into what can be able to actually instill a significant change. Because for me, we lost it when we started saying that we are leaderless and radarless. Because that left the president with no option, because the president opened doors and said we can be able to have a conversation, we can be able to discuss the way forward. But when we insisted on being leaderless and being faceless, there was no option. So, and as usual, political people in the political space had to take up and be able to take credit, because as it stands now, fortunately or unfortunately, the face of the Gen Z is Honorable Raila Odinga. Honorable Raila Odinga is the one on the table on behalf of the Gen Zs, and you cannot be able to blame him for that. You cannot be able to blame the president for that, because the president kept calling that why can't we be able to have a conversation? And that was the time when we were supposed to come out and, as young people say, these are the people who can represent our interests, because the president has to talk to somebody. You cannot be in the war, in the battlefield forever. You must be able to know what time to retreat, surrender, and have a conversation. I think, in my view, the uprising and the revolution that is being led by the Gen Zs failed to observe all the 48 laws of power, where one of them says that you must know when to stop and engage, because we lost our opportunity to stop and engage. And that's why, at the end of the day, everything that has been fought for by the Gen Zs is now being classified by the political class, and now they are the ones who will be able to take into fruition the future, the forward thinking of the country. And you cannot blame them for that. They are not at fault. The president is not at fault. It is because we kept an agenda that, in my view, was not very necessary, in insisting that we cannot be led by anybody. We do not have anyone. We do not, because at the end of the day, the president has a country to run. The president has a mandate from the Kenyans. The president must be able to. The president accepted and said, "I agree to withdraw the finance bill. I have been able to withdraw to dissolve the cabinet. Can we be able to have a conversation?" That was the time, as young people would have sat on the table and said, "We need half of this cabinet. And half of this cabinet with our people, we want to be able to put out interviews out there so that the best people can be able to take the jobs." That is how we would have been able to negotiate. But you cannot be able to push things to a certain level, but still you do not want to engage. At the end of the day, we started moving in in circular motion as though we are in a roundabout. So we would be, when you are in a roundabout and moving up and down, you would definitely be very busy. You'll spend a lot of fuel, but you'll be going nowhere.
All right. Well, because we're running out of time, I want to thank you so much, Advice Mundalo, for making time. That is communication and leadership consultant. Asante sana for making time and giving us some very, insight on this particular discussion.
Thank you too. Thank you very much.
All right. Now, so we are taking yet another very short break. When you come back, of course, we have plenty more lined up for you.
Are you an aspiring media practitioner, a graduate, or you just want to advance your skills in television production? Then welcome to Kenyatta University, where education meets innovation. KUTV, the premier university television station in Kenya, is now offering short courses in TV studio, field technical operations, and video editing. Through these courses, you will acquire hands-on skills on camera operations, media production, lighting techniques, audiovisual editing, and sound and visual control, and how to operate key equipment in modern TV control room. Enroll today at KUTV and discover your full potential in cutting-edge TV broadcasting. Graduates of these courses will receive professional certificates. For more information, visit our offices at KUTV Studios or call us on 020-870-4252 or 020-870-4255 or SMS us on 0739-110-544. KUTV, a new experience.
Repossessing your property, intellectual or material.
This and more only on Law Matters.
Lola is an app that gives you a chance to watch videos, listen to audios, and read articles wherever you are for free. Motivational stories, dramas, campus life, technology, lifestyle, adventure, sports, academics, jobs, entertainment, and more. Download Lola now on Play Store. All you need, you got Lola.
You are watching KUTV Primetime News with Auma Evans.
Welcome back and thank you for keeping it on stage of the nation. Now, Prime Cabinet Secretary, and that is Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, unveiled a comprehensive plan to address a significant fiscal gap following the withdrawal of the Finance Bill 2024. This will result in a 344 billion deficit in the country's revenue, prompting substantial cuts and strategic reallocation to ensure fiscal stability.
Secretary Musalia Mudavadi has announced that to address the fiscal gap, the government will implement significant budget cuts alongside targeted new measures. Mudavadi revealed that the withdrawal of the Finance Bill for 2024 would create a 344 billion deficit in the country's revenue. To bridge this gap, the National Treasury will reduce the Development Fund by 138 billion. Key cuts include 8 billion from the National Government Constituencies Development Fund, 1 billion from Parliament, and 800 million from the judiciary. Major infrastructure projects will also face cuts, with 14.6 billion slashed from the infrastructure projects and 14.1 billion from road construction. Other reductions include water, sanitation and irrigation projects, the police modernization process, and school infrastructure improvement. The university infrastructure budget will also be reduced by 3.3 billion. 3.3 billion will be cut from the settlement of the landless, and 2 billion will be taken from the Hustlers Fund.
In view of the above adjustments in the development budget, some of the key areas to be funded in the financial year 2024-25 development budget are also provided.
Despite these cuts, the government shall boost funding in key areas including coffee debt relief, sugarcane farmer reforms, KCC factories support, tree planting programs, and the leather factory. Additionally, 23.8 billion will be allocated for pensions, 30.8 billion will be transferred to counties, and 13.5 billion will support the NGCDF. The National Assembly, on the other hand, has adopted the report of the Budget and Appropriation Committee on its consideration of the supplementary estimates of the budget for financial year 2024-2025 for consideration.
I shall not repeat.
Now, Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, while appearing before the Budget and Appropriation Committee, addressed matters of the International Monetary Fund debt and the commercial debts the country currently faces. According to Mudavadi, the country cannot run away from paying its debt, as Ernest Karani now reports.
Speaking to the National Assembly's Budget and Appropriations Committee at the Parliament buildings yesterday, Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi defended the government's position to settle its external debt, claiming that it was necessary to have the IMF and the World Bank on our side in order to get favor from our creditors. The Prime Cabinet Secretary emphasized that there were no simplistic resolutions to settling our public debts, and that whichever way we went, we will have to pay our external debts.
The one thing I want to make clear to all Kenyans, and I know parliamentarians know this, whichever way we go, we will have to pay our external debt. It will not be written off. So our Kenyans, it may appear sometimes to give simplistic solutions.
Moreover, he added that whatever is biting Kenya is more of the commercial debt, which are the sovereign debts, stating that Kenya cannot run away from it even if another person took over, since they too have to deal with the public debts.
Our debt challenge. We have to have a program with the IMF. It cannot be otherwise. And if anybody continues to mislead people that you can walk away from the IMF and all this and have your way, it is not true.
This comes at a time when Kenya continues to face severe destruction of properties and businesses, something that the president said is continuing to derail the country's growth in GDP. Ernest Karani, KUTV.
Afraid I have some bad news for you. Now, at least 2 people were killed in an accident along the southern bypass near the Ole Sereni this morning. The accident occurred at around 6:30 a.m. when a lorry collided with a trailer. According to witness, the impact affected 3 other vehicles that were behind the trailer, and a fire broke out soon after. Both drivers died as a result, with one burnt beyond recognition. The number of those who sustained injuries is yet to be confirmed. All right, let's take yet another very short break. Up next, Sport News.
Ni kaunti maarufu
kwa kuzalisha maziwa na ukuzaji wa majani chai. Pia, serikali ya kaunti inawahimiza wakulima kukumbatia mitindo mingine ya kilimo kuzidisha mapato.
Kama kuna kikundi moja inafanya biashara ya kuuza kuku, hao pia tumewafadhili kuwafunza jinsi ya kuhandle zile kuku kwa sababu wanaleta kwa wingi.
Haya yote tunakuletea katika Boresha Kilimo, toleo la kaunti ya Bomet.
Kilimo ni nguzo kubwa kwa ujenzi wa taifa.
Access to knowledge. Solution to unanswered questions.
Guidelines to pursuing your rights and repossessing your property, intellectual or material.
This and more only on Law Matters.
Lola ni programu inayokupa fursa ya kutizama video zozote pindi tu unapokuwa na nafasi. Hadithi za kukupa motisha, drama, maisha ya vyuo vikuu, teknolojia, masuala ya jamii, kuzuru maeneo tofauti, spoti, burudani na zaidi. Pata programu ya Lola sasa kwenye rununu yako kwa yote unayohitaji.
Right, it's time for Sporty News. Now, the Football Kenya Federation will hold the annual Football Awards of the season 2023 season this Friday at the Safari Park Hotel in Nairobi. The event is set to honor the standout players and teams in the recently concluded season. The award gala is not only a celebration of the winners but an event to also acknowledge the efforts and sportsmanship of all teams throughout the season. Now, Palestinian Olympic Committee delegation has sent a letter to the International Olympic Committee Chief Thomas Bach asking him to ban Israel, citing the bombings of the besieged Strip of Gaza as a breach of the Olympic truce, even as opinion divide on the issue. Several Israeli athletes are taking part in the competition. Palestinian athletes will represent the besieged nation in the summer tournament. Now, former Tusker FC head coach Robert Matano has returned to Sofapaka FC as their new head coach. Matano has penned a one-year contract with Sofapaka after his 6-year contract with Tusker FC expired at the end of the campaign last season. Now, Matano, who led Sofapaka to the Football Kenya Federation Premier League Cup glory back in 2009, is determined to bring the team back to the good old days. Elsewhere, Cliff Nyakea, a former AFC Leopards forward, has signed a 2-year contract with Shabana FC. Nyakea is expected to be a key player for Shabana in the upcoming season, bringing with him his goal-scoring prowess. That's all we had for you this particular evening. Many thanks for men and women behind the scene who made this production a success, and for you, our esteemed viewers, for always keeping us a company. My name is Auma Evans. John Opio has been our sign language interpreter tonight. Do have a lovely night and see you next time.